The changes in the washes have changed dramatically in that respect, where it was different in the old days where we had a different relationship with the car. The car would pull up, you knew there were areas in the car that you needed to touch, and now today equipment has evolved. We wash cars faster, more efficiently, and with higher tech equipment that actually communicates back and forth. So it's really changed, in that aspect.
Welcome to the Modern Car Wash Podcast. I'm your host, Dan St. Jacques. Today's guest is Simonize Northeast Sales Manager Al West. Al's been with Simonize over 25 years, a ton of experience in the car wash industry, working 10 years before that with Preventative Car Wash. Today we covered everything relating to your chemicals, how to ensure that your chemicals are applying properly, how to get dialed in, and how to make sure you're getting the most out of your chemical applications in your wash. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Here it is. All right, Al, welcome to the Modern Car Wash Podcast. Thanks so much for joining today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So I think a good place to start, as always, if you want to just go ahead and give us just a sense of your background. I know you just celebrated 25 years with Simonize, right? Just at the end of last year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I started with Simonize the summer of 1996. Just celebrated 25 years, coming around fast at 26. Started with Simonize in the Boston market, where I was a local rep calling on car washes, and grew into the Northeast sales manager, where I cover now the Northeast, East Coast, basically from Philly, Eastern PA, New Jersey, all of New York State, including New York City, Long Island, all the way out to Buffalo, and all of New England. Over the years, as we've grown the business, I've built a team of car wash professionals. I manage 16 sales reps now and work with a few different distributors who also have sales reps. So it's there's a lot going on in our industry, as you know, and we're growing on a daily basis and pushing the envelope as well. So there's always something to do. I do also work with people nationally and with programs and product development and applications. So it's been quite a ride. Yeah.
So, I mean, you covered a little bit there about obviously the growth and having the whole sales team behind you now, but can you just give us a sense a little bit of the changes you've seen in Simonize over the last 25 years and kind of the scope of work that's changed from 25 years ago to today?
Wow. How do you sum up 100 years of history from a company that's been leading, the way for so long? When I started with Simonize, we worked out of what is our current plant now in Bolton, Connecticut. At the time, under 100,000 square feet when I started. We manufactured all our products here, stored all our raw materials here. Our logistics and delivery was out of this location, sales offices, laboratory. Since then, we've grown. This plant now, which is a great story to tell some other time, I guess. But this plant was started in the 70s by George Gora, and it's actually the original factory for Simonize, which is cool that we're still here doing it. Much bigger now. So our manufacturing space now is over 150,000 square feet, close to 200,000 square feet. We have high-speed filling lines. We have bulk storage. We have packaging capabilities, raw materials coming in and out on a daily basis. We have updated and expanded our laboratory with multiple chemists on staff, developing new products, testing. It's really cool science that's going on here. We've also moved all of our logistics and storage of finished goods to a satellite location, which is just 15, 20 minutes from our plant, which is over 170,000 square feet. Impressive logistics facility. 26 truck bays, We run 15 of our own trucks out of there every day. The place, both our plant and our logistics facility, run 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week. We move out of that logistics facility, and I got to tell you, we're moving 4 million pounds in and out of there a week. It's an impressive operation, and the people there are working hard and really do a great job, filling trucks and getting them out and getting them back in. And it's just a great operation. So there's, some growth for you there, but, this is all supported by, salespeople that are on the ground, but we also have no less than 10 satellite warehouses strategically positioned around the country. And, we fill those. All of our products are manufactured right here in Connecticut and under very strict quality guidelines that we get to house and look at every day. So it's fun to see the growth from where it was when I started. And it's fun to see the dedication and the investment that we're putting into our infrastructure to see where it's going to go.
And certainly with the way that the car wash industry is growing now too, I can't imagine that growth for you guys is going to be slowing down anytime soon.
Fingers crossed. I hope so.
So along the lines of the changes too in the last 25 years, obviously there's been a ton of change in the car wash industry itself. Can you just kind of give us an overview and kind of get as technical as you want here, but about the changes in chemical selection itself and chemical delivery systems in car washes from the time that you were in washes 25 years ago to what you're seeing today and what operators are using?
Mm-hmm. I can go back 36 years. So yes, I've been with Simonize for 25 years, but I cut my teeth with an operation in the Boston area called Scrub-A-Dub. I worked for Scrub-A-Dub for 10 years or so, and really was a great opportunity to learn the business from the inside out. Great family business, really good people over there. Still have, think of them as family. It's been so long. But, back then, we were actually running exterior washes, exterior express washes. And the difference that I've seen now is technology really has pushed the envelope. And I don't know if in the past few years, we might think about it as kind of a COVID effect, because it's really come on strong in the past few years, forcing operations to invest in technology to bring in automatic tellers, to work with less labor because it's just not available, and just automize all these operations. So the changes in the washes have changed dramatically in that respect, where, it was different in the old days where we had a different relationship with the car. The car would pull up, you knew there were areas in the car that, you needed to touch. And now, today, equipment has evolved. We wash cars faster, more efficiently, and, with higher tech equipment that actually communicates back and forth. So it's really changed, in that aspect.
It's you bring up COVID, and that was one area too that I don't know if you would have foreseen that as being sort of an area that Simonize would have been exploring when you think about those the high touch surfaces and those sort of things, because I know that was a big part of washes staying open and washes being able to operate safely, was then bringing in chemicals that were helping to kill bacteria and and keep COVID away essentially as much as you could and keep the operation safe for the employees. So I mean, that must have been something that caught you guys off guard a little bit, but you were able to pivot, I think, in that area very well and help operations like Hoffman Car Wash and other operators around the country stay open and be able to operate safely.
Oh, yeah. Caught us off guard. Well, in a sense, but we were already established and prepared for these types of viruses, for hard surface cleaning and disinfecting. At Simonize, we also have a janitorial division, and we manufacture products for janitorial, industrial, institutional, facilities. We handle school systems, hospitals, restaurants, all kinds of things. But to kind of put that a little bit in perspective, the janitorial division already had, I think we had 13 of the EPA registered disinfectants that they classified or qualified as capable of killing the coronavirus. So, we were able, like you said, to pivot. We were able to move a lot of our car wash chemical manufacturing into delivering and manufacturing, the products that people needed to try to get their doors open and to at least, prove to the governments that they were taking the necessary steps to keep people safe. So it was a wild time. It was really a wild time. A lot of car washes getting shut down. We worked with many associations, and we were on phone calls with governors, with associations, talking about how the car wash businesses actually doing something they needed done, in cleaning surfaces and disinfecting. So I think it was a learning experience for sure. But we did our part, and we were able to do it because of the facilities that we operate.
I know there are a lot of operators that are thankful for that. They were able to keep their doors open essentially and bring people in.
That was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough.
So just to transition back now to the actual wash itself, more of the fun stuff than those sort of topics. When we look at chemical delivery systems themselves now, can you just walk us through kind of what that technology looks like now when you're looking at direct injection and those sort of things, about how much that has changed in the way that operators are able to actually put chemicals on their vehicles and the way that they're doing it now versus what it might have looked like, when you started, or even in the last 5 or 10 years?
Sure. So in today's delivery systems, they've learned to control flow pressure. Back in the old days, we relied on water pressure delivered from the town or, from a well. We had a series of different types of direct injection systems or float mixing style systems that relied on town water pressure. And there's really two pressures that we look at, that I look at in car washing, and this flow pressure and this static pressure. And static pressure is obviously when nothing's moving, and flow pressure is when the car wash is up and running. And on busy days, when we were washing, when I was at Scrub It Up, when we were washing 150 cars plus an hour, that flow pressure was, negatively impacted because of all the different, functions and applications turning on and off. So your chemical dilutions and deliveries were inconsistent. The pressure to certain mixing stations was changed. So your suction was changed. But in today's systems, we've gotten smart. Now what we do is we control the flow pressure with booster pumps. Direct injection pressurized systems, as you mentioned, have booster pumps that regulate the flow, and pressurized manifolds that are controlled with that are allowed to control water flow. So with different injectors, it's a great system. You can really dial in tight on both water usage and chemical dilutions. Now we've come to a point where we can get our dilution stronger with using less product and less water. So it's an environmental, plus as well. So these systems are great. I mean, there's other systems that are out there that have also come around. There's, I guess, what would you call them? Water-powered, dosing systems. You've heard of Dosatron, and DEMA makes one called the Mix Right. These are great systems too. They're super accurate. They rely on water flow. They're activated by water flowing through the system. It goes through the system. It creates a piston movement up and down, which creates a suction and pulls chemical in at a rate that is determined by the water flow. So they're super, super accurate in mixing as well. These systems have come a long way. They're able to communicate now to operators remotely. as well. But I think that overall, what they've really done is they've given us the ability to dial in our coverage of chemistry, dial in our usage, be just so much more efficient. There's no waste. There's no waste of water. There's no waste of chemistry anymore. And I think also that environmental thing is a big deal. Water is a very important resource, and it's getting more expensive for everybody, but it's also something that is becoming, just so visual with the general public because of, what it means to the earth. So using less water and being more efficient and cleaning cars better is, just a huge impact. So great systems all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're able to use less water and less chemical and produce a better car with a decrease in your cost per car and all those areas, at the end of the day,
Yep.
that's you're winning at the end of the day if you're able to do that. So, and along those lines, obviously, you spend a lot of time in washes. If I'm an operator looking to start a car wash, or if I'm an operator trying to evaluate my chemical usage, what would you say I should be looking at in terms of I'm picking my chemical lineup and selecting the proper chemical delivery system for my wash as well?
So that's going to depend on what your business goals are and what type of a car wash you're building. So what your menu says, what your offerings, your services are going to be. All these, considerations impact, what you're going to use for products, for chemicals. I think that first and foremost, application is going to be impacted by the stages of your car wash. I like to break car washes down into 3 stages, almost like if you're try to think of it as if I was going to wash a car at home. You're going to kind of rinse it down, knock some of the heavy dirt off, soap it up, rinse it, wax it or protect it. So in a car wash, we can do the same thing. So determining what chemicals we're going to use are going to depend on what kind of services you're offering, and where they are in the tunnel. Pre-soaks obviously first, which are, used to lift the dirt from the vehicle surface. And, so do we, depending on other factors or depending on where you are in the country, geographically, what kind of soils do you have? Southern states that have more vegetation have more organic style soils. You're going to have to tailor your detergents and your pre-soaks to handle an organic soil. We get up into the mountains and, even seasonally, up north with the sand and salt that's on the road, it's going to be more inorganic type soil. So we're going to tailor our pre-soaks and our wash process based on, what we're working with.
It's interesting to hear you say that because, I mean, for me, I'm not a car wash operator, and I wouldn't necessarily ever consider the soil. I think, us being in the Northeast as you are, all that I would think about is salt. That's it for us. And then salt and dirt, and that's it, but not ever consideration to, what that actual
But what
soil
happens
is like.
seasonally? What happens seasonally
You get
up here in the
pollen.
Northeast?
Yeah.
So we transition from, a dominant inorganic type soil to a dominant organic type soil in the Northeast. So there's some fluctuations there. And for us, as chemical experts and car wash professionals, I really am just a car wash guy. I'm no engineer, just so you know. So, but 36 years. So we transition, how we apply products and strengths and, different types of applications in different areas of the wash.
Which again, so that's another evaluation for operators to make as well, is that it's not just a set it and forget it situation. It's never going to be that way because you have to be evaluating usages, but also seasonally then you have to be looking at what you're applying and the way you're applying it and, making sure to get the most out of your wash.
Mm-hmm.
So when, as an operator then, looking at the efficacy of the chemicals that you're applying, are there any sort of evaluation tools that you use other than just evaluating, watching cars coming out of your tunnel and seeing what that looks like? If I'm an operator in my tunnel, how can I evaluate the way my chemicals are applying and sort of the efficacy of those chemicals themselves?
Well, I guess so. Analyzing the efficiency of any program, really you have to set your metrics first. Excuse me for 1 second. You need to set your metrics first. What are your goals? Identify your goals, identify what your results want to be, things that can be analyzed, right? So once you kind of have that set, you can record, or review those metrics. So what could those be? I want to have, great visual experience for my customer. What does that look like? Don't just look at it from outside the car. Set that metric from what a customer would see from inside the car. Especially with express exterior washes. One of the things that we do in the car wash business is we walk through the tunnel and with owners, and we all look at it and goes, oh yeah, that looks great. Well, it looks great to us from standing outside the car. What does it look like to the customer inside the car? Record that where you want to be. How does it look? This is what I like. This is how I want to see it. These are the colors. This is how the soap coverage looks. What else? Metrics. Obviously, I want to make sure that my cars are clean and dry and shiny. And what does that look like to you? Where is your level? When you find your level and your results, you should record it. I tend to put sheets together, and when I was running washes, I put sheets together, and monthly I would, measure my products based on that initial setting that I was confident with is where I wanted to be with my results. So on a monthly basis, I would go measure my products and make sure they matched up to that. If there was something off, you can look at it simply mechanically and kind of find your way from the source back to where your issue might be. One thing great about car washes is if there's an issue with, I don't know, pick anything, drying on the passenger side of the car, you can start where your soaps touch the car, where your drying agent touches the car, and you might find a clogged nozzle. So it's pretty easy to find. It's usually something simple, but I think inspections are super important. And I think that's the best way to make sure you're efficient.
And with the way a lot of these processes are automated and you're going through this, I mean, you're able to get feedback, as you mentioned earlier, instantaneously about what, the way your chemicals are delivering or the way everything basically in your wash is operating. So when you look at it from an evaluation standpoint, as you said you did that monthly, how frequently should operators be doing that, would you say, taking a look at those things? I mean, obviously every day you should be checking out your tunnel, making sure that's operating well. But is there a timeline that you look and say, look, weekly you should be performing these checks X, Y, Z, or monthly performing these specific checks? Is there something that you look at there as sort of a guideline for inspecting those processes?
Well, I think you really daily need to be inspecting. And I think before you even open a car wash, you should be walking through the wash, running every piece of equipment, run every function, and make sure that everything is working to your standards, to what your metrics were set at, to your results and what you're looking for, your objectives. So that's a daily event. And I also feel like, car washes, the environment that this equipment is in, it's not a great environment for anything. We're a rainforest, 365 days a year, 24/7. It never dries out. And although the equipment that we make today is just, worlds ahead of what it used to be, it's still mechanical equipment and it's still water, and water finds its way through things. So I think that it's something that on a daily basis you need to do right away in the morning before you open up to your consumers, to your guests. But I also think it's something during the course of the day that someone needs to have eyes on. The communication we get back from equipment is excellent, and it's great to have, but there's nothing like putting a set of eyes on things, and there's nothing like human touch. So with that, I would say a couple times a day. There's got to be at least a couple times a day a walkthrough, but weekly, a little more detailed. Let's dial into what we're looking for. And remember that we're providing a service, to our customers, and you know, it's important that we're consistent and give the customers what they're expecting from us and what they're used to getting, from us. So, from an operator's standpoint, and even from our standpoint, I think that, Simonize, I think that we all at our company feel the same thing, that the customers that are going through car washes ultimately are our guests. So it's important, and I think working with a good supplier, your equipment supplier, your chemical supplier, will help you kind of dial in all of these things.
And so, I mean, along those lines, when you go into washes and someone calls you and says, "I need you to come take a look at the way my chemicals are applying, or I'm having an issue here," are there particular issues that you find come up often where you say it's a simple adjustment, or something that operators you find are consistently making mistakes, or maybe not necessarily cognizant of when you're going to evaluate those washes? Are there a few things that you see frequently that that are pitfalls that are easier to avoid that maybe operators aren't always taking into account?
Uh, Today's washes have so many different pieces of equipment now, from water treatment systems, to, the way the applicators run now, right, with all these booster pumps and injectors and things like that. But basically, I think not performing necessary actions like we just talked about, or not being proactive and being reactive. I see When I go in and I see mistakes or I see quality issues, it's usually simple. There could be leaks somewhere where a hose has worn over time and you're not getting the proper application to your foamer. There could be air leaks where your soap is just spitting out like liquid and you're not getting the foaming capabilities. There could be water in your air, a compressor, maybe a dryer on a compressor has failed, and the air that's going to your system is wet or moist. There's a lot of different things, small things that you can look at, but I think really it's about preventative maintenance. And I think the inspection that we just talked about, I think when I was running car washes, one of my mentors, Paul Bertinarsi, he drilled it into my head to use all of your senses, and I've never forgotten it. And he used to make me walk into a car wash and close my eyes and stand there for a minute and listen. And there was a certain hum that you had to hear, so, you got coached, and, I was coached and I learned how to do that. But you also, use your sense of smell and your eyes. And, I think you can see things before they become any problem, and I think you walk through the tunnel and you use all your senses. You don't have to close your eyes and walk through. That might have been a little extreme, but when you go into the back room, it's the same thing, because these are mechanical devices. You're going to have failures, and you could spot a leak before it becomes too difficult to fix, where maybe water is leaking on some type of electrical solenoid or panel or something. Can cause big problems. So, just inspection, using your senses, looking, listening, smelling, things like that. I think you can really pick up on a lot of these little mistakes, leaky foot valves. There's a foot valve on the bottom of a pickup tube that's failed. They just got old. They fail. Instead of pulling the proper amount of product through your system, every time you pull it, the product leaks back down to the bottom of the tube. So it might take 2 or 3 seconds to get the product back to, your injection point. It's going to change, so there's a lot of minor things, I think, that we need to pay attention to.
And that, I mean, again, as you mentioned about the inspections, and always preventative maintenance, like with a car or anything, it's always going to be cheaper on the front end to make sure you're doing the right things ahead of time if you want to, get the longevity out of your equipment and ensure that your wash is operating well. Because at the end of the day, when you're reactionary, like you're saying, and I mean, that's going to, more often than not, it's going to be way more expensive to fix a problem than to have basically cut it off at the pass.
Yeah, and think about that for a second. If we do have some type of a failure, getting the proper dilution of chemistry onto the car, whether it's a broken airline and you're not foaming it so it's not reaching the car, or it's a failed foot valve and We're not pulling product up, or a float broke, so you're not mixing product at all, or I could go on and on, obviously. But think about this for a second. How many of your customers do you impact before you react instead of being proactive, right? We have, there's car washes out there that are washing 200 cars an hour. Is it an hour? Is it 2 hours before you find something that might be wrong? So, I think it's super, super important to, have eyes on things, during the course of the day.
Yeah, I think, that's a great point, because I think at the end of the day, it's easy to think about, maybe your chemical dilution or chemical usage at that point, because something's not working, is then costing you more on the back end just from a cost per car standpoint in that amount of time. But like you're saying, the sort of fiscal repercussions of that can be far greater, because if there's one customer that has a bad experience with your wash, I mean, the way this industry is growing and the way that the competition is now, they have options. More likely than not, they have options.
Absolutely. Make no mistake. Customers notice. When you look at, especially now, when you look at club memberships and how often, customers are using the services and specific washes, if something isn't working properly, they notice. And, the last thing you want to do is negatively impact their experience. I mean, I always think too that in some respect we're in the show business, and we're putting such a great experience on, and a visual and sensual experience with visual and smell and all these things. Why? Let's not risk missing out that opportunity for every single customer that we touch.
So Al, I know you got a busy day here. I don't want to keep you forever, but what's on tap for Simonize this year? What do you see coming up for the rest of 2022? I know you guys will be at the Car Wash Show, obviously, Northeast Regional Convention. What else is your year looking like here for you guys? What are you forecasting for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so we're excited for Nashville this year. I mean, we did Las Vegas in the fall, but the feeling now is, hey, everybody's back, and Nashville's a great city and a great place to have the show. So we're super excited for that. Other than that, the Northeast Regional, we've got a bunch of small, shows and things going on with local associations. But, for us, we're excited to keep growing, and we're making serious investments in our infrastructure to try to provide better service to our customers and increase our productivity. The other thing that we do, and you've probably noticed, is we tend to really push the envelope when it comes to new services for customers. We really think that if we can keep coming up with ideas for our customers to have options to sell to consumers, it can only help their business grow. So one of the products that we recently released is a product called Carbonite, and it's a graphene infused surface hardener. And it's just incredible when I think about what we used to do to surface of cars and how we protect them now is just, light years from where we were a few years ago. But our ceramic sealant is really catching some heavy speed, and I think we're going to team it up with this graphene surface hardener Carbonite, and we're going to have something, and we do have something now that is just amazing. So we're looking forward to the growth of that product for our customers, and their sales hopefully getting higher and them making more money with it. So
that's great. Well,
that's us.
That's great, Al. Thank you again so much for your time. I'm so glad you could join us today. I want to make sure we get you on your way here. I know you're a busy guy, but we'll see you in Nashville, and thanks again for stopping by.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thanks,
have a great day.
You too. Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks again to my guest, Al West, for joining. You can visit Innovative Car Wash Equipment at the Car Wash Show 2022 at booth 857. You can find us at innovativecarwash.com and find the Modern Car Wash Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.